Alrighty, folks, looks like we got everybody. Well, hey, welcome everybody to the UX Online 8 New User Orientation Training in this edition of ProTech 60. My name is John Carley. I'm going to be presenting today with Brian Goldman. We both work here at ProTech. Brian's in the Customer Care Department. I work in the Training Development Department. Today we're going to be covering the fundamentals of UX Online 8. And again, just to reiterate, if you've done this training before, you know the format. It's going to be largely pretty similar to the trainings you've received in the past. However, you are more than welcome to attend as many orientations or post-upgrade trainings or financial manager trainings as you would like. And the way you access those is just jump onto the ProTech users group, take a look at the events tab, and get registered right then and there. Before we get started, just want to take care of a couple of housekeeping items just to make sure that everybody can hear and see me okay. I have a slide deck up and I'm talking to you through computer audio. So if you can hear me okay, why don't you take a look at your GoToTraining panel on the right side. You should have a chat box. Why don't you throw what state you're coming from in that chat box, and that'll tell me that I can hear and see everything okay. Okay, we have Texas coming in, great. Maryland. See if we can get a West Coast. Oh, we got Texas with an exclamation point. That's perfect. Great. I'm coming from Wisconsin myself, so can we get a West Coast? Looks like we're all Midwest, East Coast. That's fine too. Well, that's great. That tells me everything's good to go, and we are ready to get started. As we proceed through this training, I'm going to go ahead and mute everybody first, not because I don't want to hear your voice, but because there's a lot of feedback. And accordingly, if you do have questions or you want to comment on the training or you need more clarification on anything that we're covering today, just update that same chat box. I get the message, Brian gets the message, and I'll be moderating today, so I may be able to answer it for you right then and there. If not, and it's a logical stopping point, we'll go ahead and stop and demonstrate whatever it is that we need to show. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get started. All right, so one of the things that I want to talk about first is why we hold these webinars. First and foremost, it's because it's requested. Earlier on this year, with the launch of UX Online 8, we have a ton of different upgrades going on, a lot of new users and a lot of new people coming on board with the Microsoft Dynamics platform, which powers the UX 8 platform, which I'll talk about later. So we had a lot of people asking for new user onboarding and new user training. So this is kind of the result of that, which is great. So really what the purpose of this is to get you the guidance you need to get off to a great start. So like with any new technology, whether it be your own mobile device or an enterprise level application such as this, you do need to get off to a great start, get a great first impression, because that's going to set the tone for how you adopt the software in the future and really reap the benefits of it in the long term. So if I do my job correctly and Brian does his job correctly, we will have provided you with a high-level introduction to UX Online by way of a guided tour of that user interface and how to navigate it. We're going to search for some data along the way, and then we're going to explore all the different modules of UX Online, which you'll see is how the system is logically broken down. A couple of things I want to throw out there. If you're following along in your own system, just please note that this is done in a training system. So it's a UX Online version 8.1 training system. Very, very basic. It was set up specifically for this training. So if you have something that looks a little bit different, maybe the colors are different, or maybe some of the menu items are labeled differently, don't worry about it. It's most likely because that's a customization in your own system. But things that we're going to cover today are very high level and common to all. But again, if there's any confusion there, just update the chat box and I'll address that right then and there. Another note is that this training, albeit very effective and very useful for 60 minutes worth of training in UX Online, is not going to cover everything. So we're not going to be able to cover the entire system in 1 hour. For example, the accounting side of the training, can take upwards of weeks to be able to get a full grasp on, because it's largely dependent on your own organization's processes. So one thing that I like to throw out there, if you are interested in more training, attend as many of these sessions as you'd like and come prepared with questions. Or if you don't know what you don't know, jump onto your my.protekassociates.com portal, click on ProTech Marketplace, and there's a bunch of off-the-shelf training programs there where we do kind of fixed fee engagement with a consultant in your own system, and you can kind of review some of the different materials and different subjects and topics that we would normally cover. So if nothing else, that would spark some questions for you in some of these free trainings. So highly recommend checking that out. All right, moving on. At a very high level, Brian's going to cover the guided tour portion of the training. But at a very high level, this is what we're going to be covering today. We're going to talk a little bit about UX Online, how to get acquainted with the software and how to learn it, and as well as just how to log into the system, how to get in there for the first time, how to get acquainted, how to get familiarized, what are you looking at, and all the different functions that are presented to you when you get into the system. Then we're going to dive a little bit deeper into Advanced Find, a very powerful search tool. Talk a little bit about global search, which is very handy for detecting duplicates before they go in the system. It's kind of like Google search for your phone or for your own database, as well as working with dashboards. Then we're going to touch a little bit on the modules. So just kind of a show and tell. Here's what rosters and committees does. This is how the different functions that are inside of this module. Here's how financial manager, etc. And then if we get a little bit of time at the end, a lot of it depends on the questions we get along the way. We're going to jump right into a Q&A. Generally, this takes about 5 minutes, but again, encourage you to ask questions along the way because this can adapt to whatever it is you want to see. So if you got those questions, just throw them right in that chat box. All right, so the guest of honor here is UX Online. So what is UX Online? So UX is part of the complete ProTech business solution. It is, you'll see it alongside UX Online and MX Online. UX Online stands for user experience. This is essentially the user interface for your staff to access your AMS or your back office. So it's really the face of your database. Whereas the other half of the solution would be MX Online. That's your member experience. That's entirely different, and there'll be more training on that coming down the line, but that's going to be more of your portal solution. So we're going to focus today on UX Online. What UX Online is it's a custom solution, a very robust AMS solution built into the Microsoft Dynamics 365 framework. If you're familiar with Microsoft Dynamics 365 or CRM 2016, what this means to you as a new user is that there's a lot of material out there on, I hate to say it, Google and on Microsoft TechNet, MSDN, which is the developers network, as well as various different communities out there that will provide a lot of really handy information. So that's really what UX Online is. And really what it does is it enables your users to manage everything when it comes to your AMS in one single data silo. So all of your membership renewals, your events, your fundraising, your contributions, so different product sales, your retail, member services, and as well as professional development. Okay, and that just usually takes the shape of integrating with different LMS softwares and things like that. And again, it is part of one big complete business solution, but that's just a really high level view of what UX Online is. Okay. But what we're here to talk about today is how do you learn UX Online? Because this is the first time many of you have seen this, first time many of you have ever interacted with this software. So it's really all about good first impressions. So one thing I like to throw out there is some different materials and resources that are available to you as a new user. So anybody that comes on board as a new user for ProTech, using the UX Online product gets a wealth of different resources available to them. And that includes the ProTech Dynamic Learning Portal, which from inside of the system, you're going to see is just a little browser icon. Browser is that cute little dog right there. He's our mascot. His name's Browser. He's a little icon in your own system. You click on him and you'll be able to access any sort of videos or step-by-step, click-by-click walkthroughs. Great onboarding feature for getting acquainted with UX Online as a new user. We also have a very well-established PUG resource center. So inside the ProTech users group, if you haven't received an invite for that yet, just let me know in the chat box and I can get that set up for you on the back end here. And it's essentially just a library of all kinds of ebooks, users guides, white papers, reference guides, and anything and everything you really need to access for getting acquainted with your system. We also recently this year launched a YouTube channel called Browser's Bites. So Browser Bites are short, 2 to 4 minute long snippet videos of specific tasks within CRM. In addition to those short little videos, you can access 30 hour long trainings. There's some versions of this training on there. It's a great resource for if you got some time to kill and you want to just kind of follow along in your own system on your own time. More than welcome to do that. Again, the way you find that is just go to YouTube and type in Browser Bytes. We also have one recommendation I like to throw out there for learning the software is the ProTech Users Group community. If you ask questions or you have anything that doesn't 100% clear, there's a very, very strong chance that somebody else is having that same exact issue. So there's thousands of users inside of that community, totally self-governed, and there's tons and tons of valuable information in there. You can also query old threads. So if there was something that was brought up months ago and you don't want to be the person that repeats the same question, you can go on there and just search for all kinds of information. It's great. Again, I've already mentioned the ProTech Marketplace. What you're sitting in today is the ProTech 60. It's a 60-minute complimentary training that you receive as a ProTech user. So these are every single week, Tuesday and Thursday. Tuesdays at 11 a.m. East Coast time and Thursdays at 2 p.m. East Coast time. This is a complimentary training. You're more than welcome to attend as many as you want. We currently have a new user orientation, a post-upgrade overview, so the differences between the earlier version of UX 2011 and UX Online 8, and as well as some financial manager training, so a basic and an intermediate level training. Probably our most popular training to date. And one couple tips I like to throw out there. These are resources that I find very, very handy when getting acquainted with Dynamics CRM, this being that UX is based on that product. Power Objects. If you just Google Power Objects, they have a great blog and they have a great knowledge base of just free information out there of how to configure certain things, how to send emails, how to find contacts and accounts and things like that. The only disclaimer I'll throw out there about these third-party resources that is they are based on native Dynamics CRM. What that means is that everything may be labeled a little bit different. It'll be accounts and contacts versus organizations and members. There's nothing on renewal billing or anything like that as far as the UX product. It's really just kind of your basic functionality. But having that understanding is very handy, and I just throw those out there because they've really served me well and some of my other peers. All right, so without further ado, I think I've been talking too long. I'm stealing some of Brian's thunder. So without further ado, I'm going to turn this over to Brian, and he's going to take us on our guided tour through UX Online. All right, Brian, I am turning this over to you. Okay.
All right, thanks, John. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the new user webinar. My name is Brian Goldman. I'm a support consultant here at ProTech Associates. Right now, what we're looking at is our sign-in screen for our test UX8 system. But before I sign in, just a couple quick notes. John had already mentioned these, but I'm just going to repeat them. This is UX8, which is paired with Microsoft Dynamics 365. And this is a test system. So again, very basic system designed specifically for trainings like this. So just remember that the stuff that we see in here may not match what you see in your system. So I'm going to go ahead and sign in, and we're going to get started right away. All right, well, now I am signed in to UX8, our test system. And right away you're smacked with a lot of information, but let's just bring our eyes to the top here to this blue command strip. We'll work our way from left to right, and I'll talk about everything that we're seeing in good time. So starting up here at the top left corner, we have this UX Online button. This is going to serve as your home button. So what the screen that we're looking at right now, this is what I have set as my home page, which is the UX Product Sales Dashboard. We'll talk about dashboards here in a second. But if I'm ever navigated anywhere in the system and I want to come right back here, just say I'm done doing whatever I want to do, or I've navigated too far, I want to go back home, all I need to do is click on that UX8 Online button. So what I'm going to do really quick is navigate just somewhere really quick in the system and just show you how that works. So we'll just say we're in the events, and I had done all the work that I wanted to do. I want to go back home. Just click on that button, and it's going to bring me right back to where we just started. Moving on, we have these three lines. This is known as the hamburger button. The term hamburger was not created by ProTech. It was actually created by Microsoft. But this is also going to serve as your main menu button. So if you click on this, a series of tiles is going to drop down. And through here, you can basically access anything in the system. So just at a glance, I'll click on it and we'll get into it a little bit later. But that's your main menu right here. And again, we'll get to all those tiles in a little bit here. Next to our hamburger button, we have what we call breadcrumbs. Breadcrumbs are great because it shows you where you are in the system and how you got there. You can see that we were in CRM, and then now we're looking at our dashboards. Within our breadcrumbs, we have these little carrots next to each breadcrumb. And if you click on that carrot, you'll get any kind of related items for that breadcrumb specifically. So just to give you a show of what I'm talking about is we'll click on that and you get all those related items. Same with dashboards. I'm going to talk about dashboards here in a second. You click on that carrot and you get all the different kind of dashboards that you have access to. So you might be asking yourself, like, what am I seeing here? What is this dashboard that you're talking about? Well, dashboard's a great tool that is customizable, where you are able to show any kind of information or data from the system that you want using advanced finds. And here you can see there's some different charts, but you can also get some list views as well. So it just depends on how you're designing it, how you want your dashboard to look, and that's how you can design a dashboard. Moving on, next we have our, what John was mentioning, browser. If you click on browser, you're going to get a small window that opens. I'm going to click on here and just point out a couple things that I like a lot about this feature. So in here, you have access to different ebooks and different videos that can show you how to do specific or anything in CRM. But a couple things that I always like to point out is one, here's the dynamic learning. If you click on here, you have a series of options. And if you click on any one of these tasks, CRM or browser will actually walk you through how to do, say, like, how do I create an advanced find? If you click on that, the system will walk you through how to do that. Something else I really always like to point out is this last option down here, user's guides. The user's guide is great. It's kind of like your CRM Bible. It's something that I refer to on a very daily basis. It gives you kind of breaks down how to set things up and expected behaviors within the system. So if I ever get stuck, this is one of the first places I always go to. Just wanted to point that out. Next to browser, we have a little, what looks like a clock. If I click on that, we get to see any kind of recently viewed views or recently viewed items. I'm going to click in here and show you what that looks like. So like I said, in the recently viewed, we have recent views and recent records. So anything that you've recently viewed will be here. But let's say that you're looking at your active account records on a very consistent basis over the course of a day or over the course of a week, and you want this to always be on this screen when you click on recently viewed items. If you notice, there's a little pin here, and if I click on this pin, it'll actually get pinned to this page. So I'm going to go ahead and let's see what happens. So I clicked on that and my active accounts got pulled up to above this line. So until I unpin that, my active accounts will always be within this recently viewed items. Same thing goes with recently viewed records. Let's say I'm looking at my own contact record over and over and I'm making changes and I want an easy go-to of how to access that record. Same thing, click on that little pin and it will be pinned to this view until I unpin it. Moving on, we have this little plus sign. This is an easy go-to tool for any kind of quick creation of records. And I'll click on that and you'll see the options that you have. So you get a phone call, you want to record it really quick. This is a way of being able to do that really quick. Oftentimes as a support consultant in customer care, I need to use this tool to create a case really quick. If someone calls me on the phone, this is just an easy way, an easy go-to for me to create that record really quick and then be able to access it later on and add more information. Next, we have this global search. Global search, another really great tool within UX8. This tool allows you to search cross entities over the entire system. It'll show any kind of related account records, contact records, invoice records, any kind of records that you choose, and it'll show you those related things based on your search. This can be used in different ways. For instance, if I want to create a new record and I want to make sure that record hasn't already been created, I'm able to search this global search just to make sure I'm not creating a duplicate record or creating any kind of bad data. This can also be configured by an administrator. We'll talk about administrators a little bit later once we get into the main menu, but it is configurable and you can actually search on up to 10 entities. But for now, I want to give you a little small example of how this works. So I'm going to type in here, just letting you know I actually did type something in for some reason. Sometimes when you type into that global search bar, it doesn't show. I don't have a good reason as to why, but if you're typing in there, if you put your cursor in there, it is indeed typing. So I searched for ABC because I know that there's an account record in here called ABC Corp. But I want to point this little asterisk that I put in front of it. That stands for it contains. So I actually searched for it contains ABC, and as you can see, it pulled up one account record. But let's say I didn't put in ABC, I put in AB. Let's see what happens when I'm searching for it contains AB. So that broadened our search a little bit more, and as you can see, a lot more records came up searching on it contains the consecutive letters AB instead of ABC. I'm going to go back home. So if I want to go back home, I just click on that UX Online button. Moving on from our global search bar, we have our advanced find. I'm going to click in here and talk a little bit about it and show you an example of what an advanced find can do. So advanced find is another really great tool in the system. It gives you the ability to query any information from within the system. You're able to start your search anywhere, and once you've created these searches, you're able to save them and create saved views. Later, I'll show you some areas where you're able to search for those or access those saved views within records. Within your search, you're able to edit your columns. So if you want to add any kind of information to your search, this is where you're going to do it. You're also able to group by and or by or. But let's show you an example of what this advanced find does. So let's say I'm looking for contact records, and I want to see any contacts in the system that are active. So I'll search. I'm looking for contacts, and then I want their status to equal active. So I'm going to choose active, select it, hit OK. So now we have an advanced find set up to look for contacts with a status of active. Once you have that set up, you hit results. And now we're seeing a list of 560 active contacts within our UX8 test system. Now, if you notice, all we're seeing here is a full name. None of these have a business phone number, and we're not seeing any other kind of information. So let's say I have this list and I want some more information. What you're able to do is go back to the advanced find, click on edit columns. I'm going to click on edit columns, and we're going to see our options that are given to us here. So over here on the right side, it says add columns. We're going to click on add columns and see what kind of information we can add. So let's say you have that whole list of contacts and you want to see what their addresses are. So what you could do is you can select address, click on OK, and that has now been added as a column. Now remember, business phone didn't have any information, so let's say we want the address to be right next to the name. You're able to select these columns, select address, and you can arrow it over so it'll be next to the full name. Once you've added the information that you want here, you press OK, and then you press results again. And keep in mind what that picture, that list view looked like earlier, because now it's going to look a little bit different. As you can see, our address 1 has been added to our search. So any of these contacts with an address 1 in their record is now showing. Moving on. Next to the advanced find, we have kind of like the user who signed in. This is where that user's name is going to be. This is where you're going to go to sign out when you need to sign out simply by clicking on it. We're not going to sign out now though, because we still have a lot to show you. Finally, up here we have this little gear. This is where you're going to access your personal options. This is where you can set your home page. Like I mentioned at the beginning of this webinar, my home page is set to this dashboard, but within those personal options, you're able to change that home page if you'd like. You're also able to up the number of records that's shown in any given list. We recommend upping that to the max, which I believe is 250. We'll take a look at it in a second. And I think it defaults to 50. So by upping it to 250, you're just able to see more records that in one view versus having to page through 4 pages of 50 records versus looking at 1 page of 200 records. You're also able to set your time zone, choose a currency if applicable. And then something else that I recently found out that's in here, and I'll show you where it is. Under privacy, we're probably all familiar with those annoying Microsoft messages that says, send error report. And you feel like you're sending a report, but you don't get to hear anything back. Well, in a second here, I'll show you a setting where you can avoid getting that pop-up on your screen, and the message is just sent for you. So clicking on that little gear, click on options. It'll bring up that window for your personal options. Straight up at the top, here's your home page. This is what I was talking about, records per page. I believe it's defaulted to 50, but we recommend upping it to 250. Again, just for ease of seeing more records at the same time, but that's all, based on what you like. Your time zone and your currency. And what I was talking about was up here for privacy. That error message that says, send Microsoft send the report. You can just automatically send the report to Microsoft without asking me for permission. Once you've made any kind of changes here, you're just going to simply click OK, and any changes that you've made will be updated. One more thing about personal options. They're called personal options because they're options per the user. So if I make changes in my system, but you haven't made changes in yours, we might see things slightly different. So if you do like that, whatever kind of changes I may have made, all you need to do is go into those personal options and set the options as you would like. All right, I'd like to take a quick 1-minute break. If you had any questions about what we just talked about this top blue command bar, feel free to put them into that chat box, and I will do my best to answer any questions that come in. If not, we'll get started here in a minute. All right, I'm not seeing any questions coming in. Just to review really quick, what we just spoke about, we just covered this top blue command bar as far as your home button, your main menu button, the breadcrumbs, which are showing you where you are in the system and how you got there, browser for any kind of videos or ebooks, as well as the user's guide. We have the recently viewed items where you can pin things so you can access them a lot easier. We went through how to create a quick record, say a phone call or an activity that you want to record really quick. We talked about that global search, how you're able to query the entire system and search on multiple entities at the same time. We talked about advanced find and how you're able to create searches and then save them. And then we also talked about our personal options. Earlier, I mentioned that hamburger button, that main menu button, and I quickly showed you what it looked like when we clicked on it. Now we're going to talk about each one of these tiles. And just to give you a heads up, the way I'm going to approach this is we'll go one by one through each tile. I'll talk about the tile a little bit, what you might find in there, who might be working in, in that tile, and then I'll show you what I talk about. So our first tile here is our CRM tile. You already kind of got a preview of this when we clicked on that caret for the CRM. But within the CRM tile, you're going to see all your different kinds of CRM items. Something I'm going to point out once we open this up, there are a few things that are going to actually follow us along no matter which tile that we're in. And those are your dashboards, your contacts and accounts, as well as your invoices. Those items will be following us as we move into each tile. I'm going to go ahead and click on CRM again, just so you get a view of all those related CRM items. Again, dashboards, accounts and contacts, and invoices are going to be following us as we move through the rest of these tiles. So first we have our financial manager. This is where anyone who's on your accounting team within your organization, this is where they're pretty much going to be living. Within the financial manager, you're going to be able to locate and create batches. You're going to be able to locate your chart of accounts. If you do any kind of cash reconciliation, this is where that's going to be. If you do any kind of gift cards, you want to issue, members gift cards, this is where you're going to be able to set up those gift cards. And then also under accounting manager, we have invoice processing. This is where you're going to be able to generate any kind of renewal billing invoices. And then under that, we have payment processes. That's where you're going to be able to access different payment options such as auto pay and rapid pay. We're going to go into the account manager, and I'll point some of the things that I just mentioned. I'll point them out where they are within this. So like I mentioned before, here's where you're going to be able to create and locate all your batches. You're going to be able to create those gift certificates if your organization does. If you do any kind of cash reconciliation, this is where that's located, as well as your chart of accounts, all within the accounting manager. Within the invoice processing, this is where you're going to be able to generate those renewal billing invoices for memberships and subscriptions. We'll talk about memberships and subscriptions next. And then also within the financial manager, we have the payment processes, which gives you the options of using auto pay and rapid pay, which are nice ways of just creating, making the payment process a little bit faster or more convenient for the customer. Auto pay, pretty much what it sounds like. It's going to be an automatic payment based on what you choose you want it to be for. And then rapid pay gives you the option to take one check and split it amongst multiple invoices. Moving on, we have membership. Membership, kind of what it sounds like. This is where those people who manage your memberships and subscriptions are going to be working a lot. And this is where you're really going to be able to set a good foundation within your setups for these benefits before you run them through a renewal manager. We're going to go ahead and go into membership and subscriptions, and we'll talk a little bit about what we're seeing in here. I'm going to go in to the renewal billing settings, because this is where you're going to go in order to set up those benefits. So step 3 in this screen is where you're actually setting up those benefits, whether they be subscriptions or memberships. You're also able to create, if you do any kind of prorating or installments, you can create those things here. And like I mentioned, step 3, the renewal benefit, that's where you're actually setting up those benefits. Also within this tile, you may have noticed we have the renewal manager. So I mentioned before in the financial manager that you can run renewals. You can also run renewals here under the renewal billing, under the renewal manager. You're able to generate those same invoices. Under membership, you can also set up chapters if you use chapters based on your membership, based on location. You're also able to create committees and rosters. within those chapters or within those benefits. Moving on. Next, we have events. We know a lot of organizations have at least one event a year, sometimes many more. This is going to be where that event planner is going to go to set up all the information necessary for an event. Before we go into this, before I select on events and talk a little bit more, I like to think about an event kind of like an umbrella. Under the umbrella, it can house one meeting and one exhibit. Within your meeting is where you're going to be setting up all those sessions. So I'm going to go ahead into the events, and we'll talk a little bit about what we're seeing in here. So within your event settings, this is where you're going to store all your data for all the different events that you might create. Also through here, you're able to you have the option within your setup to create a wait list. So this is where you're able to access those wait lists. Say, you have a maximum capacity and more people sign up than what's allowed, they can be put onto a wait list. So if anyone has to back out last minute, you're able to quickly look at a wait list view and contact that next person on the list if they want to see if they want to still attend. I'm going to go ahead and go into the event settings, and we'll talk a little bit more about what's in here. Again, the event setup, this is where all that data is going to be stored for the specific events. But also within here, you're able to create your badges and tickets, as well as your locations. Moving on, we're going to go into product sales. Within the product sales tile, you're able to set up all your sales inventory and non-inventory. I'm going to go in here and show you where that setup would be. So the setup for the products themselves would be within the product sales settings, but also within this tile, you're able to fulfill any shipping, any kind of order shipping. And if you do any kind of back orders, you're able to view and process those back orders within this tile. Moving on to education. Some organizations, they keep track of professional development, such as the CEUs for fulfillment. This is where you're able to keep track of all those records, and you're also able to run renewals and terminations for the certifications themselves. Just a quick glance, we'll go on in here. So this is where you're able to validate those CEUs and run either renewals or termination, depending on what's happening with the specific person that has whatever kind of education. Also within education, you have education history, which just gives you a quick glance, a list of all the active education history records in the system. Moving on, we have fundraising. Fundraising is exactly what it sounds like. If you do any kind of pledges, contributions, any kind of recurring gifts, this is where you're going to be able to go ahead and set those things up or click in. And like I said, this is where you'll be able to create those things. Next is advertising. Again, advertising kind of is what it sounds like. If you do any kind of advertising, this is where you'll be able to set that up. You'll be able to set up the ads, their sizes, and their prices so they can be accessible by people who need them. Last but not least, we have administration. Before I get into administration, I just want to note the administration tab will be for the power user only. But I still like to talk about it because this is where you're going to be able to customize your system or set up jobs that could be automatic jobs based on workflows. So just like to show that really quick. All right. So we've talked about the top command bar. I'm going to quickly just go back home just to start from scratch. We've talked about that top command bar. We've gone through our main menu. We've talked a little bit about each tile. Next, I'm going to go into our some of our actual data in our system and show you. We'll start with account records. So we actually have a couple options because we pinned it to our recently viewed views, I can access my active accounts here. Or if you recall, no matter which tile we're in, those account and contacts are going to be following us. So because we're here, I'm just going to access it from here. So I'm going to go ahead and click on accounts, and we'll talk about what we're seeing over here. So clicking on the active accounts, immediately you see a list of all active accounts in the system. Note that we have 70 active accounts, but let's say we had 500. Over here where it says page 1, there would be an option to go to page 2. So by upping that record amount to 250, we would have 2 pages to look at, versus if you left it at 50 and you had 200 records, you'd have 4 pages to look at. So again, just it's based on preference. I happen to like having more records on a page at a time, but not everyone has that. Like to bring your eyes up to here, right where it says active accounts. We have a little drop down caret. I'm going to go ahead, click on this, and we'll talk about what we're seeing down here. So right now we're looking at active accounts, and we have this list of system views. Right now, again, we're looking at active accounts, but I want to look at inactive accounts. So it's as simple as just clicking on inactive accounts, and you can see that we have 2 inactive accounts here. On this drop down, we have that little pin next to next to active accounts. That is indicating that active accounts is our default view. Let's say we want to make the inactive accounts defaulted. We just need to click on that pin by pinning it, and it kind of turns diagonal. That is now our default view. You can see it's changed over here. Just an option that you have. I want to keep my active accounts defaulted, so I'm going to change that right back. Up here at the top, we have under our blue command bar, we have a new toolbar. Through here, you're able to create a new account, delete account. We never recommend deleting the account. Instead, just deactivating the account. By deleting it, you're deleting it forever. You don't really ever have access to whatever you delete again. But if you deactivate it, you're still able to access whatever you deactivated. You're also able to email a link, run reports, import or export to Excel. Over here we have 3 little dots, or ellipses we call them. We'll see these in a few of our different screens that we're going to look at, and this just gives you some extra commands. Over here on the top right, we have a little search bar. I'm able to search for any account record that's on this page. So again, I'm going to use that asterisk and just do the same thing that we did before. As you can see, it's only pulling 1 record because we had a pretty specific search, because we searched for it contains ABC. But if we're searching for it contains just AB, you get a few more options here. To get back to that list of all the active accounts, all you need to simply do is click on that X, and it'll bring you right back. So I'll do that so we can get back here. Over here, let's say you're making a lot of changes and you don't see them showing up on the screen. Up here, right below that search bar, we have a little refresh list. Again, if you're making changes and you don't see them happening on this screen, you just simply hit refresh, and those changes should then show. Next to that, we have a little what I think looks like a funnel. This is another option that you have to filter within this view of active accounts. And by clicking on that little funnel, you're going to notice that each one of these columns will then have a drop-down caret. So I'm going to go ahead and just notice how the columns change slightly. So right when I clicked on it, we got these little drop-down carets. This is very handy for if you're looking at a longer view and you want to kind of narrow it down a little bit. Right now we're just looking at active accounts, but let's say I want to see active accounts that have a primary contact. I can select that drop down and click on contains data, meaning it has a primary contact. Now we're looking at active accounts with a primary contact. Let's say I also want to see the ones that are members. So down here under custom filter, we can select yes, which would be yes for a member. Press OK. And as you can see, the more we filter, the shorter our list gets. To kind of undo what we just did, all you need to simply do is click on that funnel again, that filter, and it'll bring you right back to the entire list of active accounts. Next to some of these names, you might notice this little symbol. This indicates that there's some kind of a hierarchy. So there's some kind of a parent account and a child account. And I'm going to go ahead and click on this just to give you a kind of a view of what I'm talking about. So as you can see here, the hierarchy shows that the Atlantic Civic Center is the parent account to a regular user's account too. If you needed, you could open these into a new window. That's not needed right now. I just wanted to point that out. I also wanted to point out this alphabet bar at the bottom of this view. If you want to look for just accounts that start with A, you can click on A. Same thing goes with if you wanted to O. We don't happen to have any accounts that start with O, but that's basically how that works. And to get back to that whole list of active accounts, you just need to click on all. If I select one of these accounts, well, before I do that, we talked about this gray toolbar. Once you select a line of one of the accounts, it's going to change. So by selecting it, now you can see, you can create a new one, you can edit it, you can activate it or deactivate. Remember, we recommend deactivating instead of deleting. That way you keep a history of the data. You're able to merge records if need. You're able to detect duplicates. You can send direct emails. Again, we have that more commands. So here we have a lot more options. I'm going to go ahead and open an account record. We've been talking about ABC Corp, so I'm going to go ahead and open that. But I want you to notice when I open this, I want you to notice what happens to the tab. I'm going to go ahead and open this record. As you can see, ABC Corp is opened, but I lost the tab that I was working in before. So let's say I want to keep that tab open. I don't want to lose it. I'm going to go back and show you how that's possible. So instead of just double clicking on it, what you can do is you can right click and choose open in a new window. I'm going to go ahead and I want you to notice the tabs up at the top. It has opened a new tab. So I've kept my list of active accounts open, and now I can also access the ABC Corp record as well. And you're able to do that for any records that you see in list views like that. All right, I want to take another quick break. I'm going to start the 1-minute timer. If you have any questions about the account records, feel free to put them into that chat window. If not, we'll get started up here again in about 1 minute. So just a quick review, we talked about our account records, where you can find them, different ways you can search for them, ways you can create default views. Something I may have failed to mention, if you create a saved view and it's for accounts, this is where you're going to be able to find those. So you can see it here as well as the advanced find. And we also talked about the hierarchy and ways to filter within this list view. Just to wrap up here, we're gonna take a look at contact records. So again, there's a couple different ways that you can access the contact records. I'm just simply going to go into my CRM tile and click on contacts. So this screen's going to look very similar to our account screen. We have the same options here. We're able to search for it in the same ways. We can search with the wildcard with the asterisk. We can filter by column. If we're making any kind of changes and we're not seeing them, we can refresh that list. We're able to set a default view. I've actually created some saved views specifically for contacts. So like I mentioned, I can access those here, so I can see them on this screen as well. We have that alphabet bar down here. So if you want to search by the letter, you're able to do that. Here we have 560 active contacts in the system. It's showing me 250 because that's what I have set in my personal options. But here I can give you just an example of since we have more than just 250, I can page over. And now we see the remainder in the next couple pages. I'm just going to go back to the beginning. If I select any contact, that toolbar changes again. So I can create a new one. I can edit that existing one. I can activate or deactivate or delete. Again, I can't stress enough, we don't recommend deleting, just simply deactivate. So if you need to access that information again, you're able to do so. I'm going to go ahead and open one of these contact records, and we'll talk a little bit more about what we're seeing in the contact record. So up here, you get another new toolbar. If you're making any changes, you can save or save and close. You can validate the address. You're able to create a new invoice here or copy the address. This deceased button, you know, unfortunately, some users do pass. So when that happens, all you need to do is simply open up that contact record, press on the deceased button, and it'll automatically run some processes, which will, you know, cancel out any invoices that contact may have. Next to the contact name, we see a mini hamburger button, and if you click on that, you see the different sections of this record. So if you know, let's say you need to get back to the bottom of that document really quick. This is just a quick way of doing that. I just simply clicked on the mini hamburger and on the web, and it automatically brought me to the bottom of this. In this example, this is where you would find login information for the MX site. I'm going to just simply go back to the top just so we can talk a little bit more about what's here. Next to the first name and last name, we get a couple little symbols here. Next to the last name, we have this red asterisk. This means business required. So if you're filling out this form and this field is not filled out, you will not be able to save. The blue cross stands for business recommended. So if I didn't have a first name here, technically I would be able to save, but it's highly recommended that I have a first name for a contact record. You also might notice these little locks. These are read-only fields. These fields cannot be changed. And within the contact record, you can find specific information about that contact specifically, such as price level, whether they're a member or not. You can put in their address. If they have a secondary address, maybe it's a work address, maybe it's, you know, they have 2 homes in the country or one's outside of the country. You can record that information here. You're also able to edit their contact preferences. So, you know, some people only want to be contacted by email. They don't want to be contacted over the phone. So this is where you can edit those preferences so those contacts can remain happy. Something else that is very handy is under this internal information. You'll see, you know, who's the owner of the record, who created it. Also, most importantly, when it was modified, if it was modified by anybody, and who it was modified by. Just a couple more things down here at the bottom. Just want to point out this this kind of grayish bar. It says active, indicating that this contact is an active contact in our system. If it were not activated, it would say inactive down here. One last thing before I turn it back over to John. Up here in our breadcrumbs, it's showing us that how we were in CRM, we accessed our contacts, and we're looking at Zach Black. Just a quick review. That caret is still here, so by clicking on it, you're going to see any kind of related items to this contact specifically. All right. Well, like I said, we've been running out of time, so I'm going to turn this back over to John. Thank you very much. I hope this was helpful for all you new users out there.
All right, thank you so much, Brian. Appreciate it. I know we're running short here on time. We've got a couple more minutes. I just want to make sure that we don't have any questions coming in, so I'm going to review the chat box real quick. Looks like we answered most of them. Okay, let's make sure we're 1 for 1 there. Great. So, oh, we just have one more question coming up. Will this be fully functional on Macs? Great question because I love Macintosh. The the most recent version of UX Online 8 is compatible with Safari. However, if you try to access it on Chrome on a Mac, it will not work. It'll default to the mobile version of the site. If you have any previous versions, the unsupported versions, so UX5, UX 2011, or anything prior to that, it will not work on any Macintosh. It needs to be an Internet Explorer on a Windows computer. Does that answer your question? So just make sure you're on Safari and on the most up-to-date software. I did some testing on the most recent release of High Sierra, and it worked just fine. I haven't run any issues from there. If you have Sierra, that's great. It seems to work a little bit better as far as just performance-wise, but that's just me nitpicking. But great question, absolutely great question. If there are any questions on browser compatibility and how to set up your system, there's some great resources out there on the Pug. If nothing else, just pop on there and introduce yourself, and we can always. Usually, you'll just get showered with love if you're a new user, so it's a great thing. All right, looks like we're good on questions. I've already told you about the ProTech users group. One thing I just want to leave with you before we go is if you like this training, by all means, let me know. I'm just going to throw my email in there. It's a very feedback generated training. So if you have any questions or anything like that, by all means, shoot me an email, or if you have any feedback you'd like to leave me about things you'd like to see or things that were left out or things you found confusing, I'd love to hear about it. We take the feedback very seriously. If nothing else, if you say, hey, do you have any supplemental information on how to set up, say, views or anything like that, I can certainly provide that for you. And if you're interested in follow-on training, a great springboard training after this is the Financial Manager Basic. I always recommend that one because perhaps the most robust training is or the most robust module within UX Online in terms of training is the Financial Manager. And we have a basic and intermediate level series. So that's a great way to get your toe in the water, take a look at it. It's interesting in that when you're configuring things and making changes in the Financial Manager module, they influence the rest of the system to include how you're billing your members and how your account versus contact relationship works. And it kind of talks a little bit about how all the implications work together. So I always recommend it for new users just to pop on there, just to see how things work. If nothing else, it generates a ton of questions, which is always a great thing.